Hey guys, this is Wombat with another episode of Imperial Might, is what we're calling this series. All right, so this game I am playing Kornel. Have a relatively standard deployment at the get-go. I've got a fleet in Salakami, a fleet in RotE, a Death Star with two stormtroopers and a loyal Corellia, and then another full fleet out in Mustafar. That leaves the Megiddo region pretty open, but I would rather leave that region open than the Endor region. I draw Mahdi, and so with this deployment, the tricky part is if I drop Mahdi on Coruscant or on Megiddo, he and Tarkin are likely to suffer confrontation. So I have to pin one of my fleets. So the Mustafar fleet seems to be the easy one to pin over there. It also maybe prevents a sabotage on there. I almost always take Mahdi, and if I don't, I usually regret it. It does lead to a weaker turn one, which can sometimes be a problem. So here, I've got a trade negotiations off the base deck. I really like that card. I really like the base deck compared to the RotE deck. Now the tricky part is I can't just drop Tarkin on R&D, so I need to make a decision on whether or not I'm going to play it safe and do tag on R&D to discourage him from trying to sabotage Corellia, or if I just drop Vader on trade negotiations is what I end up deciding to do. Now he opens with Mon Mothma's card, which is a disaster. I was hoping that he would open with a sabotage, and then to try to block the Star Destroyer. But with trade relations, that's a problem. So counter that by moving Tag up to Mon Calamari. He doesn't infiltrate. And then I've only got one move left with the Emperor, and it's a pretty obvious move that I have to take, so I'm going to go ahead and do that and try to see what Leia does with her build alliance. Instead of that, he decides to attack Megiddo. The only real decision you have to think about here as Empire is whether or not he's going to play the cancel card. He does not. Technically playing the 501st probably would have been okay, but just as well. It's not like I was going to win that in the first place. So then the question really becomes, what do I do with this trade negotiations? One option is Ord Mantell, but he's got a troop left on there, so that's not super great. If I don't take Ord, then Leia's going to take it, and he's going to be able to build there, and he's going to get potentially a Y-wing there. So the core region is kind of under stress right now. That being said, just have a different decision to make. I'll go ahead and pick Bespin. Not sure I really like that idea. I probably should have picked Ord, but I didn't like the idea of, potentially giving him three blockaded Imperial systems pretty quickly. So I'll just go with that. End of turn one looks not great for the Empire starting off. I do get a nice leader with Piet. I like both of Piet's cards, and I really detest General Veers, but I probably shouldn't. Anyway, grabbing Piet, and then have some deployment decisions to make. So what did we accomplish turn one? Well, they got two Moncals on the queue, which is not great. I did get a Star Destroyer because he decided not to sabotage, so that felt pretty good. That definitely puts me behind in the build queue, and then I've got a loyal Ord with no clear way of subjugating it the next turn here, so got a little bit of a mess on my hands. I always like to think at the start of turn two what cards are going to be most damaging if the rebels pull them. That's usually hit and run, so I like to try to think about what I want to do with my assault carriers here. So the rebels are opening. He actually grabbed Han Solo, so he's going to grab Chewbacca and stick him on Kashyyyk. That's usually a red flag for, red missions coming after this. Anytime the rebels grab Chewbacca, I always get a little nervous about trying to play any captures after that, just because Chewie's so good at blocking. Anyway, so Kornel drops Chewie on there. I do no missions because I have a lot of moving I need to do. I need to try to get the core region back under control. He's infiltrating again, so he's getting closer and closer to the Death Star plans. So now I need to start thinking about what I need to do third turn, which is subjugate Utapau, probably subjugate Ryloth, subjugate Ord. So rather than moving Tarkin to Dagobah to start, I move the assault carrier, because if I move the Star Destroyer to Dagobah and then get hit and ran, by somebody down the road, it feels worse. So I wanted to make sure to get somebody to Hoth. Mothma grabbed Nal Hutta, so now he's got 2 loyalty in the Hutts region, so go ahead and subjugate that. And then Riken's going to sabotage Bothui. I think I actually moved Tag a little bit quick there. Doing that allowed an easy sabotage, which I now can't easily get rid of. So that's something I probably would have tried to do at a different time. There was no rush since I had so many leaders there. I easily could have moved to Felucia first and forced his hand. So lesson learned there. Now I'm kind of vulnerable to cut supply lines because he's got 2. He's also got 2 in the Hutts region. He's not super close to regional aid, so I think I'm okay there. And then I should have, unless he pulls a hit and run, I should have the Endor region blocked off next turn. So now the real decision is what I want to do with the core here. One option is to move to Alderaan, and then I change my mind here, but the better option, I believe, is actually to move to Coruscant. It gives me a little bit bigger of a ground force there. Having 2 ATSTs on Alderaan doesn't feel great, so I will, and then plus, in theory, I could stumble into the base, and then that would be a disaster. So moving to the core, and then Vader's moving up to Tatooine. That puts me in position to subjugate Utapau, subjugate Ryloth. If he tries to go for Geonosis, I could go there instead. I've also got a group over in Felucia, still have a group in Seleucami, so outside of the Megiddo region, I'm doing okay. Have a choice here between Krennic and Janis. Pretty sure the correct pick there was Krennic, but I grabbed Janis with the idea of being able to drop 3 extra stormtroopers somewhere. I'm kind of light on ground deployment, so I need that. Plus the rebels are up fairly high on loyalty, so having Janis around to rule by fear is probably okay. He takes Obi-Wan Kenobi. Anytime the rebels take Obi-Wan, well, them having Obi-Wan and Chewbacca is pretty brutal for the 3 block intel and then the 3 block on Fist missions as well. But anytime they grab Obi-Wan, you always need to be thinking about undercover moves. So a fairly common play for rebels with Obi-Wan and undercover is they'll attack with a fleet with Obi-Wan. You'll play a mission as the Empire, and they'll move Obi-Wan there to block it with undercover. Any mission, it doesn't matter. Blocking the mission's not important, but what happens is it frees up the fleet for a second move, so that can be a bit of a disaster. So I draw Planetary here. I don't have a great place to use it, plus they've got Chewbacca. So priorities here is Empire. I need to, subjugate something in the Ryloth system, subjugate something in the Utapau system, probably try to block loyalty gain in the Hutt region, try to block a sabotage to prevent cut supply lines. I've got a bit of a mess on my hand here. I'm also worried about dealing with that group in Ord Mantell. Now, he did not score Threaten the Core last turn. I kind of expected that, but means he could be holding on to Long War or defensive positions or something like that. So here he's keeping 2 back. He's keeping Riken back, probably for an attack, and Leia back, probably for a block. Obi-Wan's on a mission, so it's probably covert operations, which means he's going to draw another card here early, which could be the Death Star plans. I mean, just one Y-wing out there, but I've seen crazier. So what I'm going to try here is I'm going to try a detain with tag. The idea being, you know, if he doesn't attack the Death Star and is somewhere nearby, you know, maybe detaining his leader might, you know, leave us open for an attack, a counterattack next turn. But he is going to charge in with Recon. He's leaving his Y-wing behind, which means if he retreats, he needs to retreat back to Ord, which is where I want to go anyway. So the real concern here is whether or not I'm going to be able to hold off his soldiers and his speeder. I think I have a fairly reasonable chance. It probably would have made sense to play Janus there, but I do decide to kind of press my luck a little bit, not send in the leader with the idea of being able to counterattack. So he's most likely going to block hits here. I think the right move is to play the super laser. See if I change my mind on that. Okay, instead I'm just going to blow up a troop. That might have been the right move too. Okay, he plays a no heal card just to make sure I can't heal a TIE fighter, I guess. It's going to work on that Death Star. And then I will kill one of the two. I'm assuming he's not going to bail on the attack first round, so I kill the Corvette. And then on the ground fight, I need to do as much damage as possible. Yep. Okay, yeah, we were just clearing up space combat there. So flipping the combat doesn't do a whole lot of good. I can't cancel because he got rid of the striker. So I just need to do as much damage as possible. Does give him a chance to heal, but he's only got one red dice. So he's doing pretty good here with 5 damage. Looks like he's probably going to score a crippling blow. And just going to try to wipe all my units. So bad news so far for the Empire. I did manage to heal an ATST, did manage to heal a troop, and then do some damage. So he's got one troop left. We both have 501st, so looks like I snuck away from major disaster with that one. See if he scores an objective here. There's a crippling blow, and then he just needs to make a decision as to whether or not he's going to retreat or stay. Retreat's probably a good move here, but instead we're going for staying. So because he stays, he has to trash the transport because he didn't retreat, and then I'll 501st. He's going to try to kill that ATST is what's going on here. So maybe I get lucky and heal it. I do not. But I do keep a troop, so I do have control of the system. I can move and subjugate Ord. I need to be a little careful in case that's a base, so I just need to not attack it with Vader or Palps or Piet, to be honest there. So we'll just toss Mahdi into this mix, try to get rid of the Y-Wing, also subjugate Ord, and then if it is the base, then at least it's just Mahdi dying. And you know, the problem with sending Mahdi is that he's likely to sabotage Ord after that, and then that's going to make it hard to deploy, and then I'll have a super vulnerable Death Star for somebody who's actively infiltrating and probably going to grab an extra objective here. So this is not great, but it does follow my general rule of, you know, needing to, number one, subjugate rebel planets and limit rebel production. So I'll go ahead and do that. Now I got to be a little careful because if he does sabotage Ord, then he can also score cut supply lines. We'll see where he builds his loyalty here. Nope, there's the covert operations. So now he's probably going to have the Death Star here. So I don't have anywhere great at the moment to detain anyone with tag, so I just gotta kind of keep doing my stuff here. If I'm not really sure what to do next, I usually just try to play an obvious move that I'm gonna do in all circumstances. So Vader moving to Utapau's seems fine. I arguably should have kept him back to block a sabotage, but I also needed to not get Utapau sabotaged, so it was and I have not enough leaders to move around, so just catching up. He rogue squadrons a Star Destroyer, doesn't infiltrate. I check Endor, so now the Endor region's blocked off, which is nice, and I have a carrier there, which is good. So where could he be? He could be Ryloth, but most likely at this point he's in Ilum or Dantooine. Tarkin's going to play catch up with Star Destroyers, so now that I grabbed Utapau, I can drop a delay on there and then get some capital ships up back on the board to help offset the Rogue Squadron raid. So he's down to loyalty and probably a sabotage, which would make sense for what Han was on. Leia's here to block. Really, I just don't want her blocking Rule by Fear, so I need to use the Emperor to go somewhere where I can then gain a loyalty with the Rule by Fear. So he does sabotage Ord. There's not a whole lot I can do about that. He can score cut supply lines now. Anytime rebels are scoring 2 or 3 level 1 objectives, it usually feels pretty bad. But, I mean, not a whole lot we can do there if he has it. Or he might try to score huts with Mothma here. I went ahead and grabbed loyalty in Utapau with Vader. I could have done it in the hut region, but then he probably blocks it with Leia. So since he was already likely to score cut supply lines, I also gave him out on that. So he drops Leia in Cato, which means he's probably not likely to build alliance in the hut region. And I go ahead and try to detain Leia. Now, why Leia? You know, really the only reason is if they do gain loyalty there and they do deploy there in Cato, at least since Leia's detained, she can't. You can't then move those units out. So that got at least a little bit of benefit out of that card. Frankly, I probably shouldn't have played it at all, but what can you do? So I moved the Tatooine group last because I wanted to see if they were going to grab Geonosis or not. They didn't, so I grabbed Ryloth. And then we can kind of consolidate here. Grabbed Endor, which I guess can't help that. Couple of nice cards, like Tarkin's card, and then grab both of Ozzel's cards, so catch them by surprise is it's pretty much the only always card that I grab, if possible. Also nice because I have Ozzel's probe card, so 2 birds, 1 stone there. So now we've got a little bit of an issue because I am deploying TIE fighters and stormtroopers, and Kornel is deploying a giant rebel fleet, and really my backups are 2 turns away. You know, get another Star Destroyer, and so I've got, you know, 2 Star Destroyers, 2 assault carriers, 2 TIEs on deployment turn 2, but by then he can maraud around wherever he wants. So the only upside is if he deploys in Cato, he's stuck there for a turn, so that does help a little bit. So now I kind of got to think about, you know, what do I want to do depending on where he puts his guys. So he's actually going to keep them all on the queue. Okay, fair enough. He doesn't have any easy attack targets at Cato, and, you know, if he deploys them there, they're just going to be sitting. So I have no transports to deploy, so basically I just need to drop troops at spots where I think I need to be moving out from. I also need to get some troops onto Coruscant. Coruscant's really open to a hit and run plus a hidden fleet. Would be kind of a disaster, so got to kind of do that. Get a few troops there. Put some things on Felucia. That's going to be a sort of useful place, and then a couple of TIE fighters, which I think I probably keep on maybe another Influtia. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so off to assignment phase. So we just had a build turn come up. There was no more Moncals that got on the plate, so that feels okay. I'm gonna drop 3 Stormtroopers on Ord with public support. It gives me 4 Stormtroopers on Ord. Um, that's I just needed something there because if I need to make a move to Megiddo, then I at least can win that fight there. Then I've got Tarkin on his card. That card's good at this point in the game. It's definitely not as strong as it is if you grab it on turn 1, but what can you do? Sometimes things don't pull up when they can. So he's got, is that Obi and Wedge back? No, that's Chewie and Wedge back. So he doesn't have a lot of intel blocking back, so I can probably get away with pulling a Intercept Transmission. Intercept Transmission is kind of an interesting card because if you're about to find the rebel base, sometimes Intercept is counterproductive, but I like to play it if I can get away with it and if I have lots of subjugated spots on the board because just the fewer probe cards in the deck, the better, and it makes plant false leads slightly worse. So we'll see. And then Tarkin's card we might be able to use somewhere. Maybe we could move a Star Destroyer to Kessel and strip the Hutt region if we need to. So worth pointing out that he did not score cut supply lines last turn. Kind of lucky there. Okay, so he is dropping. Yep, so we're running missions on the Death Star. Incite Rebellion to start. So I'm going to go ahead and drop tag there and take my cards back. Now, I have mixed opinions on whether or not this is good in hindsight, but I needed to make sure. So the thought process there, let's go through the thought process. So he's starting to stack leaders on where the Death Star is, right? So anytime that happens, anytime missions are run on the Death Star, it's should always be a warning for maybe the Death Star is going to be attacked, right? So by putting tag in there, I did get some rerolls. I did save some Stormtroopers, but I also just pinned the Death Star to a sabotaged and subjugated system. So I think in hindsight, that idea was not great. Probably the better move was to move to Megiddo and just weather that attack or retreat back to Coruscant. So either way, now that I've committed to staying there, I need to start thinking about what we're going to do if the Death Star gets attacked with a public uprising, or I guess not a public uprising in this case, but plan the assault or whatever it is. So Obi-Wan is now infiltrating at the Death Star, which that's pretty key for we're about to have a fight here on a fairly undefended Death Star. So yeah, not I did block the infiltrate, not great. The correct move here is probably to, yeah, we'll see. Try to stack as much intel on there. I'm now realizing I'm in a lot of trouble, which is what the rapid clicking around is going on here. So the more I can add, the more intel I can add into Ord, the better at this point. So I'm going to try to rule by fear there. That does strip the rebel loyalty. Not really what I needed to do. I was hoping to save that for something else. I could have played Tarkin's card there too, but he only has 1 intel compared to 2. Wedge is just sitting there, so that's bad news. Now I'm wasting Tarkin's card. Well, not wasting, I guess. I do get the loyalty off in Ord, which protects against uprising, but that's not what's coming. It also adds an extra intel. So here's the thing. If Plan the Assault goes off, with Wedge there and only 3 TIE fighters, I mean, the Death Star's pretty much toast. So the decision I have to make is how much extra intel dice do I want to try to roll. So that's why I dropped Tarkin's card there. It was kind of an all-in play. You know, it does give me 5 dice to try to block plan the assault, but unfortunately, even with a roll of a 5, he rolls 6, it looks like. So plan the assault goes off. I have now committed all my leaders to a lost cause here, but the Emperor will try to go down swinging. So what do you do in this situation? Well, unfortunately, there's not a whole lot, because with the Nebulon card, you need to do 6 damage, and I only have 6 black damage, and I only have 3 black dice and 3 rerolls. So instead of needing to roll only 5, I just decide to go after the carrier. So I roll 2. I would need basically 3 directs here. I don't roll any. So turns out getting the Nebulon was the right decision, and then he blows the Death Star. He may or may not have needed to spend 1 in a million on there, but I think for 2 objective points, it's probably worth it. So now we've got 3 X-Wings left with a tie. So now the game is definitely at this point in the Rebels' favor, I believe, especially since I've overcommitted all my leaders there. But can only do what you can do. So we've got 1 TIE fighter left against 3 X-Wings after a bit of a lucky heal. I waste a card, he wastes a card. I get 1 more X-Wing, then the Emperor standing over a shredded Ord Mantell. 2 objective points for the Rebels, plus they've scored Crippling Blow, plus they almost have Huts. They have 1 other level 2 objective as well. Level 2s I try not to overthink too much. There's not a whole lot you can do against them. So Mandalore seems like the right move here. I got to try to get back to that that area. Now that I have no transport there, I mean, he's most likely in Dantooine or Ilum at this point. Alright, so Regan's card. Looks like that passes. Yep. And then we're going to try and intercept. Now I don't have any great spots to do an intercept because I committed all my leaders. To trying to block plan the assault. So the better move, well, I mean, depends. The correct move was to try to block plan. But if he was not going after the Death Star, another thing I could have done is moved off of a subjugated rebel system and then played the intel card there. So I do get a lucky roll against Leia, and I pull 4 probes off of the gather intel card. The other reason I like the intercept card. The other reason I like the intercept card is because it helps shuffle the deck. So if you're playing against a rebel player that's doing lots of rapids just specifically for the reason of getting a lay of the bottom 8 or 12 probe cards, sometimes that's kind of nice. Okay, so a couple other probes here. Draw Kashyyyk and Bespin, plus the 4 that I was on. So probe deck is starting to get pretty rifled through. There's still a possibility they're in Yavin, but pretty much everywhere else is off the record. There's Jer Gerard. A little bit late there, and I do have max leaders, so taking Gerard with fully operational is completely worthless, so I'll just take Janice's second card. Not a lot I could do there. That feels kind of like a sad leader pull, but is what it is. Okay, so now we are leader even. He is deploying a Moncal, 2 Moncals to the base. Nope, 1 Moncal to the base, 1 to Cato, which is now able to be moved. So let's think about weak spots on the map right now. So I do have a little bit of a weakness down in the southeast region, but I do have 2 Star Destroyers to deploy. I've also got a weakness in the core, where he's got 2 capital ships. So I need to try to figure out how to deal with both of those. I need to figure out how to deal with the capital ships. I also need to figure out how to continue to bolster the Megiddo region. And I also can't move too far away from Yavin because he could easily be on Yavin. And if you have to double back too many times in this game, you're definitely toast. So I do have Piet, and I did draw a long-range probe, so it seems like that's probably the right turn to play it. I'm sure he's going to keep Leia back to block it, or Obi maybe. Nope. Okay, and Akbar. So with Akbar available, means he's probably... I see. Okay, so Leia is Desperate Houring. So what could Leia be grabbing? See if she puts anybody else on that. So either 2 loyalty or 2 intel for Leia. Okay, so let's see what we do here. I probably need to plan on killing the X-Wings and then removing the sabotage, deploying some Star Destroyers on Ord, watching out for the Rebel fleet moving to Alderaan, and then gaining loyalty there, and then building starfighters because we're on a starfighter turn. So we're on a build turn. Lots of things to do here. All right, now I'm in the middle of being bitter about Chair Gerard being a turn too late. All right. So, okay. So we're gonna try a probe, and then rule by fear, also R&D, and we're just gonna try to narrow out where the base is not. If I can draw one of those probes, either Yavin or Dantooine or Ilum, that'll be helpful. So we're gonna try to make the rebels do things first here. So they're gonna rapid. Doesn't necessarily mean that we're near the base, but I mean we have to sort of be near the base, and we just shuffled the deck with intercept, so that makes sense. We've got a disposable leader with Mahdi, so I do need to check Yavin. I need to draw probes, but I also need a Star Destroyer to be able to use Ozzel's card. So the correct move here is to move a Star Destroyer that I am going to move anyway to a system that I need to move it to. So that, in this case, is Geonosis. So we'll move Mahdi to Geonosis with the idea of using Ozzel there next. Okay, so he's attacking in to my single tie in Coruscant. So I need to kind of worry about lead the strike team now. I don't have a great card to play here. No Interdictor, so Starfighter is dead, and now I've only got 3 guys on Coruscant. Feels not super great. This is the move with Ozzel to draw 4 probes. His card is really good if you draw it. I mean, if I draw Ozzel's card early and I draw Proceeding as Planned as like my first or second leader option, I will take Proceeding as Planned and skip the possibility of getting a Catch Them by Surprise. All right, so Piet after that, after those probes I found, Ilum made sense to check. So I tapped it. He does not block it. So I feel like he probably should have blocked it, but maybe he thought I had better probes than I did. So now we know he's an Ilum. Good job, Piet. Now I have some real decisions to make here. So what do we do with getting to Ord at this point? So if I move all my fleet into Ord, and he moves his fleet to Alderaan, he's going to attack into a single Star Destroyer with a force that frankly is undefeatable. So plus I know he rapided this turn, and Yavin is still a possibility. So I have lots of things to worry about here. So he's going to sabotage my Megiddo, make that region basically completely off limits to me. And I've got a Rule by Fear left. He still has a Build Alliance. Looks like I'm debating on Kessel here. I don't actually remember what my move here is. So I think Kessel's probably a good move. It takes off a rapid location. Apparently we're just going for. Apparently we're just not playing soundly here. I need to be worried about HUDs. In all instances, I need to be worried about preventing. Yeah, there we go. Obi to Toydaria, and then another loyalty there will score it. Losing the Death Star puts you way behind in objectives, even if they take Saw, right? So anytime you lose the Death Star, you need to be ultra careful about what missions you're pulling. Okay, so maybe this will end up working out. So I put Saw on Toydaria, and then Vader needs to make a decision about which direction to move here. I don't know why I'm considering it so much. Yeah, that's the move. Okay, so why not move to Ord, right? If I move to Ord, my whole pile of units is going to get attacked by out of the base, right? So they rapided those two, or Kornel rapided his two capital ships back to the base, just as bad as him moving to Alderaan. So if I move to Ord, then I get attacked, then I lose my fleet, and now I have no more ships to go anywhere. He can rapid to Dantooine or Yavin, and then my nearest Star Destroyer is in Celeste. So even though I'm behind on turn order, it's really important at this end game not to rush and make bad decisions. He's already used to playing the assault. Now, I do have an exposed Star Destroyer there for the moment, but I won't here once I deploy a couple of Star Destroyers there. So, I mean, he could do a public uprising and, kill the ground. He does not have Lando, so I don't need to worry about him moving all my ground forces out. So now I need to play a little bit conservatively to make sure that I'm not getting myself into a situation that I can't win. So I'm going to end up deploying up here in Mandalore and then move to Ord. Now, in theory, had I moved everything to Ord, I could be deploying in Ord, and we could still have a fairly large battle there. But the difference is, if he rapids and he moves to Yavin, I'm in major trouble, right? He moves to Yavin, sabotages Felucia, and does a uprising or incite rebellion in Mandalore, and then the whole thing's a mess. So I need to try to be a little bit more conservative with my moves here. Plus, he's got a lot of troops on the base, so I need to also deploy ground in addition to just space, right? So I'm going to deploy ground into Mandalore with the idea of they're going to sit there, let my fleet move down to Ord, and then I can build more fleet or ground on Ord next turn. I don't have a lot of time to wait, but I do have a little bit. So what do I need to do here? I need to try to, subjugate Kashyyyk, subjugate Cato, probably move down to Dantooine or Dathomir to limit rapid options and get close to covering Dantooine after that. I'm going to go ahead and do a planetary. Planetary can serve a few different purposes here. I can play planetary on Ord later on in the turn to get more ground units to Ord to prep an attack. I can use planetary on Ilum to try to trigger an attack and kill a speeder or two. All those things are possible. So we'll see. It's a nice flexible card at this point. So Dodonna's going to gather intel, and then now I need to try to be careful about my turn here. So for sure I need to protect against getting a core, threaten the core objective, and I want to recycle my cards too. I know that's going to give him the ability to recycle cards as well, but because he's holding on to the Moncal card, I need to do this attack, because otherwise his first attack in our next fight will be to play the Moncal card and then play the X-Wing card. and then his second attack will be to play the Moncal card again because it will cycle through. So I needed to force that attack. I end up winning it, which is good. Gives me a backup transport in Coruscant. Okay, so he's going to gain another loyalty. He's going to strip the loyalty and Celeste, which is okay. Oh, I should point out he scored Huts last round too. So I'm just letting way too many little things go at this point in the game. Honestly, it's because I'm fairly frustrated and panicked if I remember my attitude here. So so I'm going to move to Ord, drop 3 Star Destroyers, a Striker, bring my ground, empty out Mandalore. So now I've got a shield bunker, got 3 ATSTs, got a couple of Stormtroopers, got a reasonable fleet that I can probably hold my own against on the Rebels, and enough to discourage him to not bring his troops into the base. So Han is on lead the strike team. Okay, now that I had attacked Coruscant to take the space back, he doesn't have a reason to attack there, so he picks a subjugated system to attack, which to me means he's probably going to score seize control. There's not a whole lot you can do about that, right? That's one of those easy to score level 2 objectives, and he's still got more level 2s in his hands, so this game is very close to being over at this point. Ozzel's going to go into Cato, subjugate. I've got basically a lone Star Destroyer that's exposed for Rebel Assault, but again, don't have a whole lot of options on here. And then he thinks about attacking into Ord, but what's going on in the chat is he actually decides to hold off the attack because he wants to put Chewie there first, right? So putting Chewie there first means what he probably could have done is maybe sabotage there and then tried to score the objective there. I don't know if that would have been the right move or not, but either way, putting Chewie there ensures he can roll a ground battle. It also forces me to make some decisions here, and he knows I don't have any cards that can help me with the upcoming battle. I already have Piet there, so I've already got a 3 leader. At this point, I'm trying to decide whether or not I need to planetary in the base or not, because he has now spent Chewie, right? So the downside to planetarying in the base is I'm not going to win that fight. And if I lose that fight and he plays Return to the Jedi, the game's over, right? But the game is almost over anyway. So if I do play planetary in the base, and I can kill a speeder or a speeder and a troop, that really softens up either the counterattack for next turn or something else. Now I could also play planetary on Ord, which is what I was thinking about, to bolster my forces there and bring extra troops for Vader. But instead I decide to go for the base and risk Return to the Jedi. And turns out Leia's on subject... I always get the name of that card wrong. Subterfuge or whatever it's called. And then, so that's the card she grabbed with Desperate Hour. Makes sense. Blocks Vader. Means he probably doesn't have Return to the Jedi. Now he's going to sabotage Ord. So yeah, I really should have just played the Planetary Conquest on Ord. That would have been the right move. That could have helped defend against sabotage. That would have given me a 3-strength leader. I'm now going to drop cover Kashyyyk, follow the subjugation rule. And again, had I done a planetary here, even if planetary failed, right? Even if planetary failed, I would still have been able to potentially block the sabotage here. I have an R&D, but I could have saved that for something else too. Okay, so Piet sitting on a Star Destroyer. Akbar plays it's a trap. Rebels probably have the advantage here. It's 4, 5, and 3 on 5, 5, and 1, plus they got the Moncal card, plus I can't play a card. So Rebels are most likely going to, they're going to play the Moncal card. There it is. Andy's going to flip the combat. Okay, that's the best combo, I think, that he can play. He's got 3 rerolls. I have to roll first, and I don't get a card. Okay, so Piet is a champ here. Rolls lots of critical hits. So I don't re-roll the red because he's already blocking 1, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4 damage. Now I need to win this decisively, so I can't get cute about trying to, kill the Corvette first or whatever, even though he's got a cancel card coming up. I need to kill that Moncal. So I need him to not roll a heal here. He does not. So he kills a Star Destroyer, a Striker, a couple of ties, and you'll note he did not bring around ground combat, which is nice. Okay, Rebels I think still have a little bit of an advantage here. He has a cancel card with the Corvette, right? So I gotta play a damage card. I don't want to play my TIE Fighter card, or I wouldn't score it anyway, but I need to do a damage because I need to try to bait him into canceling it. He does not, so what we're talking about here is whether or not I need to assign the damage before he decides to cancel it. So now, because my dice are lower, I've only got 4 reds, I need to most likely kill the Nebulon or something like that. So instead I probably should have picked the Moncal here too. Again, Piet's a champ. I roll 4 red hits, 5 red hits. So now I need to kill that second Moncal. And then, yep, so had I done my damage differently, I probably would have done 5 to the Moncal and a crit on each of the Starfighters, but that's okay. Okay, no heals, which is great, and then also only 3 red damage, which is also great. So Piet's really coming out ahead on this one. So he's got a Corvette, a Nebulon, and a couple of Starfighters here. You'll notice he did not play the Major Victory card, which is kill 3 space units in a fight. So, and he didn't bring ground, so he probably doesn't have Decisive Victory either. I don't get a card this round, so he's going to play 1 more and prevent me from healing, which is the right card. I roll a massive hit group again. So, I mean, yeah, this Piet's insane in this fight. So definitely, well, probably one I should not have won, if I'm being totally honest, but sometimes the dice go your way. So the important thing here is to make sure you over damage everything in a way where rolling a red heal doesn't save him. So I wipe his 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 more and I would have been in big trouble here. Okay, so I've got a Star Destroyer, dead ties. I have 1 SD left sitting over a sabotaged loyal system. I do have an R&D to play here. So really it's kind of come down to this next fight here. So one thing I could have done, which I'm sure a lot of people were maybe thinking about or maybe not, is I could have planned the assault, or I could have caught them by surprise in Ilum, right? I could have attacked in with Ozzel. Now, rewinding time again. So had I moved to Ord last turn instead of stayed and deployed in Mandalore, right? I move to Ord, I deploy my 2 Star Destroyers, I attack in, I don't have my extra ground troops, right? I'm not going to win that fight. Plus Ozzel doesn't have as many rerolls. So again, it was risky doing that move, but I think it was the only way I had a chance here. We play a couple of extra cards here. I remove the sabotage off, and he scores the 6 loyalty objective. So we are right up on the final turn here. There's no waiting here. I've done a really poor job of blocking objectives this game. And had it not been for a lucky roll, or had he either blocked Piet's card, or I picked the wrong system, or whatever it was, lots of things had to go my way on this one. Alright, so last deploy turn, I just need to figure out what to drop. He's going to put, he's going to swap a U-Wing for a soldier, which makes sense because he doesn't have the U-Wing card anymore. So He can't do much about that. That's also not a subjugated system, so he can't open with an uprising. Um, and I did draw carbon here, carbon freeze. So I do have some missions I can play in case my catch them by surprise fails. Basically, what I'm trying to think about here. So last turn, right? So if catch them by surprise fails, and I get an opportunity to play carbon freeze, what do I need to do to prevent him from scoring any other objectives? Right? He could have drawn major victory. He could have raid outposts. All those could be subject to an uprising card. So public uprising. So I basically tried to bolster my subjugated places that could be hit by raid outposts. Now for the missions, I have tag on draw out, and I drop Janice there too, so I can blindside it, basically pulling Chewie off, giving Piet one chance to capture with one red dice, and then Vader a carbon freeze attempt. That's kind of a shot in the dark. I cut most of that out because really the only thing that matters here is to catch them by surprise with Ozzel. So I need to attack in because I can't risk him scoring one objective and winning it with an uprising. I knew he had confrontation, and he's got the cancel card and the flip card, so it would make sense that he confronts to see what I do. I'm going to do damage because flipping the combat doesn't do any good if he's already got, 3 possible red heals and whatnot. I just need to kill things. So Ozzel this time pulls off a great damage output here. Kills all the speeders equally, overkills each of the troops by 1. Obi needs to roll a heal here. And instead, Obi gives it his best and rolls 3 more hits. 3. So he rolls 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hits. 7 hits out of 8 dice. 2, 4, 6, 7. Yep, almost everything there. But I'm left with 2 ATSTs, and the game is over. So let's recap kind of the major decision points in this here. You'll see, okay, so he did have Factory, he did have Decisive Victory, and he also had Return to the Jedi. I don't know when he drew Return to the Jedi. He may have wanted to let that planetary go on Ilum. That may have ended the game right there. He was not on Uprising, but he was on a rescue mission. So, I mean, honestly, I had to have a lot of things go my way to pull this one off here. I could have blocked Huts if I was a little bit more careful. I could have kept Vader back to try to block, lead the strike team. Lots of coulda, woulda, shouldas, but hopefully that last battle was useful to watch. That's a pretty typical end game sort of situation where you gotta try to live through that Mon Cal flip combat card best you can. Yeah, that's what we got. All right, well, thanks for watching again. Appreciate everybody, and looking forward to seeing you guys in the next video.